Hey there, baseball fans. It's Ben. I am back today with a special look at some of the worst baseball card photography in the junk wax era, with a special focus today on 1993 Upper Deck. Now, I've been going through some 1993 Upper Deck recently, and honestly, it has some of the best photography of the junk wax era. I would put it right up there with Stadium Club or even above Stadium Club. If you go through and look at your 1993 Upper Deck, just some phenomenal pictures and photos of the game in action and players in their element. Now, that said, they also took a lot of risks that didn't quite pan out, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Starting off with our good friend Vinny Castilla, who is just yelling at the ball, is what it looks like there. So, pretty phenomenal shot of him there. And moving on to Matt Noakes, he is such a good baseball player that they're like, the best action shot we have of him is hitting off a tee. Okay, great. Super excited about that card. And then Ron Karkovice, who's ordering a pizza, chilling, having a styrofoam cup and ordering a pizza on the phone. Then you have Jeff Brantley, who works so hard for his, he is such an athlete that the best shot of him is sitting in an armchair in the clubhouse. Moving on to some pictures of players just not quite doing what they're wanting to be doing, including Omar Olivares, who is clearly losing his bat there with his swing and the most awkward-looking swing on the planet. And I'm just going through the mindset of the manufacturer here, the creative director, who's like, this is a great shot here. We should definitely put Omar in one of his worst batting moments on the card. Similar with Greg Myers, who's like, yep, I swung and I threw the bat as I swung, and it's going out of here. One of the worst technical swings ever. And then you get Andy Van Slyke, a top performer, and they're like, let's show him at his worst after he's hitting the elbow with a pitch. Imagine if we only had a better shot of him. Nope, we don't. We just have him yelling and putting his helmet on. So that's the best we got. Rick Sutcliffe, a star performer for years and years, and they're like, well, why don't we just not show his face? We'll cover it up with his arm. It's the only angle we've got. So, come on. Then we get Will Cordero, who's turning a double play. It's a high-flying action shot until you look up in the corner there and you're like, oh, that's where the ball is. Didn't work out very well for him. Not one of his best moments. Then you have Kim Batiste, who is making the play, looking a little awkward himself. But who is that? Ozzie Smith, who's getting a face full of glove. Certainly a challenging shot there. And then you have Jerry Brown, who's just scared. Who's scared of baseball. He's shirking back as he's heading into third base there. Leo Gomez, who's playing limbo, or brushed back by a pitch, depending on how you look at it. But nice, big, prominent crotch shot right in the middle of his 1993 baseball card. If only they had a better shot for him. Ozzie Guillen, who's clearly fooling around, and that ends up being his baseball card, doing some kind of sleeping, screaming at the same time move. Not really sure. And you get Jeff Ennis, who's working hard, but look at that face. Poor guy. That's the best. He spends all his time to get on the baseball card, and this is what he's saddled with. Now, that would make a great cover shot. Why they put that on the back and that on the front, I'll never know. Then you get Mark Lewis, who's just a shill for Upper Deck as a brand, since they put him on that bucket, the Upper Deck bucket. And again, if only we had a better shot. This is Upper Deck being pretty darn clever by saying, hey, Mike Perez, you're signing the very card that you're on, which is impossible. So clearly some graphic design work with Mike Perez. I actually think this stuff is kind of cool when they do that. And you'll see later that that's not the first time they went that route. Then you get Lance Parrish, who's making a great play. There's a big action shot, but the primary focus of this card is the umpire's rear end. That's in the foreground there. So great job, Upper Deck, choosing that one. And then for some reason, baseball cards, and specifically Upper Deck, are obsessed with baseball players and cameras. So there's Omar Vizquel with his camera. No, a great action shot on the back, but he's with a video camera on the front. And then you get Doug Jones doing exactly the same thing. And then you get Mark Williamson, who's posing for a portrait, and they get in the foreground the photographer himself. So again, instead of a great action shot like they put in the back, let's put this weird behind-the-scenes look of Mark getting his portrait taken. And then blatant pandering to say, hey, what's another way to get a Ken Griffey Jr. card in this set? What if we just put it with Jay Buhner for his card? So we'll steal a show of showing him messing around with Ken Griffey Jr. But by no means does 1993 Upper Deck have a lock on those kind of weird, terrible photos for their shots, for their cards. Here's Gary Pettis, what I think is probably the first iteration of him signing the card he's actually on. So that is the back of the 1989 Upper Deck Gary Pettis. You can see there the same card right here. So clearly their Photoshop efforts before Photoshop even existed were in full swing. Then we've got a couple players here of them doing things not related to baseball. Playing some guitar in a hammock. And then you got Benny Santiago and his fancy Ferrari. Or Lamborghini, I'm not a car guy, I don't really know. Then you get Rex Hudler, who's like, I'm just going to be weirdly hugging this post and making a strange face. And that's what we'll put on front. Similarly, here's Eric Pappas eating some kind of snack in a bowl. And that's what they chose to put on the front of his baseball card for Stadium Club. Then Jose Rio should get a whole category all to himself. There are his fancy sunglasses. I actually think these came from Pizza Hut, if I recall, them being a thing in 1990, 1991, that you could get those sunglasses from Pizza Hut. Then you have another Jose Rio of him playing doctor with a stethoscope there. And here he is with Super Soaker, a very 90s image. It kind of looks like it's during the middle of the national anthem or something, and he's paying homage with his Super Soaker. Then back to our days of the camera shots. Here's Roger McDowell with a tiny disposable camera, something you don't see very often these days. And there is Ryan McGuire with a long lens zoom camera. And then Julian Tavares with a camera as well. They just love when baseball players are taking pictures. And you get Jody Reed here, who's chilling on the bench and with a bunch of trash around him. It's like, here's your baseball card. You sitting amongst trash. Nice work. Frank Tanana doing one of the less glamorous jobs of baseball, throwing some BP and filling up the ball bucket. Again, a really established player, plenty of great action shots out there, and it shows him filling up the ball great. There's Brian McRae, clearly failing at bunting. You get Tony Phillips. The ball goes right by his glove. So not him at his best. Mitch Webster taking a swing at one of the lowest pitches in the history of humankind that wasn't in the dirt. So clearly not a good chance for him. And again, that would be a great shot if it were on the front. Phil Plantier, who's just, at least he's not swinging, he's just watching the ball go by, but maybe it's a strike, so who knows. Then you get Carlos Garcia, the old head crotch shot as he's diving back into a play. Kirk Gibson, whose card is mostly taken up by the rear end of the umpire. Another great shot there. Again, with all the great action shots available, and they thought, this is the best thing that I could put on a card, on the front of a card to represent a player for a season. And Glenn Allen Hill, again, he's barely even in this picture. It is mostly the catcher from behind. So not sure what they were quite thinking. And then we'll move on to the final section here, which are some of the worst portraits I've seen recently. Joe Bitker from 1991 Fleer. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this one. Let the picture tell the story there. Then you have Bob Knepper, who I don't know if he's aware he's on a baseball team. And I think he was, so he was on the Astros before for years and years, and they probably just didn't have a good shot of him in the Giants uniform, so they said, let's take the only shot we have without a hat, paint on some uniform for him. And it's just a weird photo. That's the best they could do, I guess. The famous Ed Lynch triple chin, and then the worst baseball card of all time, Bob Hamlin's 1996 Pinnacle. I actually found this as I was looking through some commons, looking for a different card, and this one was just by itself there, and I said, I can't believe I didn't notice this the first time I went through them. There's the Bob Hamlin, and again, you have an action shot here, and you chose this one instead. So baseball card companies, keep giving to us all these weird things. Hope you guys enjoyed a little lighter side of the baseball card collecting hobby. I'll see you next time.